How you doing, guys? How's everything going? Let me turn the welder off. Woo. How you fellas doing? And ladies, because there's a few ladies that have joined up for the fun and games. So anyway, a while ago I said I'd do a video on Satanism, and as the title says below, pretty much that's what we're going to be talking about. So I'm not going to get into all the nitty-gritty details or anything like that. I'm going to keep this stuff really, really simple because, I mean, some people just go so over the top with this stuff about Satanism and all that sort of thing. In a nutshell, the simplest way to describe Satanism is rampant, unbridled materialism. And the wars that are utilized to help perpetuate and bring about that materialism. Hence the title. Pretty much the main guys, the main group of individuals that are behind all this stuff are these guys right here. I've shown, all my regular subscribers know very much about this book, but these are the guys that are behind this stuff. This book is the 33-degree Bible for those individuals. Now, what's really very interesting is this is the reason I'm doing this video. So please share it with as many people as you can. The reason I'm doing this is everybody is talking about this group of guys right here, right now, because of what they're doing in a certain part of the world right here. Now, I have to use these little cue cards like this because if I mention certain names, this video will be taken away. That's all there is to it, because that's just how it works with my channel for some reason. So nobody is tying these guys right here in with these guys right here. Now, what's really interesting is that these guys and these guys are one of the same. They are the exact same group of individuals, period. At the highest degree, the 33 and above, they are all these guys. And I can go into exceptional detail about all that stuff. But I'm going to keep this stuff really simple. Ever since these guys here got their hands on the printing presses back in the day when it was only media, was only newspaper, they then got their hands on radio and then television, movies. Pretty much the entire Western media is now owned and ran by these guys right here. So what they do is they utilize these platforms to push a narrative. They utilize this stuff to manipulate your mind, your emotions, your feelings, etc., to bring about end results for them. A lot of those end results have ended up being purely rooted in materialism, okay? But the really nefarious aspect of this is actually the wars, because what these guys have actually, pretty much what they have figured out is that the bigger and the bigger and the bigger wars that they have, the more and more and more money and the more and more resources they make the money and they accumulate the resources. The resources are pure materialism. That's all this Satanism stuff is. However, it is very nefarious because the whole death aspect of all this stuff comes about via the sacrifice. Now, I've talked about the sacrifice in other videos years ago. And the reality of the situation is, what is the single greatest thing that you can do in this life as a human being? The single greatest thing that you can do is to sacrifice your life for the greater good of humanity. And this is where the wars come in. This is where all these wars have come in for hundreds of years. Because when you join a military of some sort and you go off to some sort of foreign land and you fight some sort of war and you get killed, what happens is the laws of creation, God's natural laws of creation, nature, etc., have only one thing that they can do, and that is to give back for that sacrifice. Okay? So your life is paid back. It's something like ninefold or some deal like that. And honestly, I can't remember what the exact number is, but it's a hefty price. It's a really hefty price. So when you actually take that aspect of the sacrificial act, okay, and then you look at the magnitude of, say, the Second World War, and not just the Second World War, the dropping of the nuclear bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Okay, massive, massive, massive sacrificial acts that were performed literally by these guys right here. I mean, Harry Truman, the dude that gave the US military the thumbs up to drop that stuff, he was one of these guys. Straight up. Roosevelt, the president of the United States before Truman, he was one of these guys. Who was Winston Churchill? Winston Churchill, the leader of England during the Second World War. One of these guys. Oh, this gets really interesting. You know that funny little dude in Germany with the bizarre little mustache, the Austrian fella? Would you believe me if I told you that he was one of these guys? Yeah. Kind of odd, isn't it? How all this stuff kind of ties together. And I could do an extremely brutal video about how these guys right here in bed with these guys, because they're one of the same, threw these people right here and slaughtered thousands, hundreds of thousands to millions of them during the Second World War so they could populate this country. They could bring about this country. And the deals that they made with that funny little dude with the bizarre mustache in Germany. Yeah. They made deals. These guys here made deals, real deals, to force these people and slaughter millions of these people to get them out of Germany, to force them to move. They're ruthless. They're some of the most ruthless SOBs on the face of the earth. And what they do is they utilize this Satanistic belief and system to literally, like I said, bring about rampant, unadulterated materialism and to line their pockets with their own gold. Because what it boils down to is that they own the media, they own the oil distribution and they own the oil networks around the world. They own the industrial military complexes in Europe, the United States, everywhere in Western society. So they'll utilize their media platforms to push and propagate some sort of new conflict, some sort of issue, some sort of problem, like, you know, a war on terror or the yellow man in Japan. No disrespect to the Japanese, I'm just repeating what was said back at that period of time. When in actual fact, or even like right now, Russia is the greatest enemy on the face of the earth. All Russia, China. Really? China? Give me a break. So the reality is they'll get the dopey Westerners, the stupid Americans, all ramped up, and then there'll be some sort of attack, some sort of false flag event. Even the attack on Pearl Harbor was a false flag event because the Australian Navy had been warning the Americans for days that there was a huge Japanese armada heading towards the west coast of the United States or Hawaii. All the military did, the Navy did, was just get a couple of their cruisers or their aircraft carriers out of Pearl Harbor. But here's the thing. Do you realize how many of these guys at the highest degree are in the Navy? Yeah, folks, these dudes play you, me, and everybody else to the highest possible level out there. It is unbelievable. So anyway, the whole Japan attacking Pearl Harbor, that was all brought about by the United States. What the United States was doing to Japan leading up to the Second World War was exactly the same as what the United States is trying to do to China right now. It's the frickin' truth. It's the exact same playbook. It is unfrickin' real. And they're constantly fomenting and stirring up the shit like this to get the citizenry behind them so they can have some sort of attack, force the opposition to do something, or actually bring about some sort of false flag event where thousands of Americans are killed and murdered and slaughtered or something like that, that then gets the Americans and the Westerners all ramped up, that justifies them to go over to a foreign shore that they've already been stirring the pot up with and start a whole war over there. But they've got to get the Americans and the Westerners on board so the governments can give the banks the thumbs up to put more debt against the citizenry, because that's how the economic system works, is via debt. The real money players, they do not use their money. It's your money. They get you to give the government, because the government are the used car salesmen of the political spectrum. They're just a bunch of whores. And they will literally, no disrespect to used car salesmen, get the public behind them. The public will give them the thumbs up. The banks will sign off on, or the government will sign off on the banks, hey, give us billions or trillions of dollars, and then it's off to war. Then the West will go and decimate, kill, murder, and slaughter, which are huge bloodletting, sacrificial acts. They're just bloodletting acts. They're no different to back when the Mayans would sacrifice one child, or the Celts would sacrifice one child or one virgin or what have you for a good crop or something like that. Okay, that's all this stuff is, just on a massive industrial level. It is so disgusting, it is unbelievable. Then what they'll do is they'll pull off something like they did in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, where they drop nukes on two cities, absolutely decimate and blow those cities off the face of the earth, which actually caused an absolute shit show literally on the other side, which is material for another whole video, and the reason why we're not allowed to use the nukes, because nukes actually vaporize and destroy and kill the soul of a human being, and when you kill and destroy the soul of a human being, guess what you're killing off, a part of? God. Yeah, that's why we're not allowed to use the nukes. So what happens is then the bankers go, whoa, we'll come in and we'll be your savings grace and we'll loan you money so you can rebuild your country. Yay. Satanism. Straight up. And the bankers, the Rothschilds family, they're these guys right here. One of the most powerfulest families on the face of the earth. I think the Rothschilds are pretty much second in regards to power to the British Crown, from what I can gather. I could be wrong there. Oh, and this And just so you guys know, Russell Brand is a member of the Rothschilds family. He married into that family. And just so you guys know, all right, because there's been some conjecture about whether or not Russell Brand is one of these guys and one of these guys. Oops, sorry, one of these guys. The reality is the Rothschilds only intermarry with their own kind, their own family. So for Russell to actually marry into the Rothschilds family in some way, shape, or form, he is a descendant of the original Rothschilds. That's all there is to it. So anything that you're getting from Russell Brand is completely and utterly, it's a sidetrack. It's to take you off in a different direction, just kind of like how I did now. But the reality is this is how the Satanism works. This is what they do to keep you completely and utterly derailed, going off in all sorts of different directions instead of focusing on what is at hand. And nobody, there is not one person out there, they talk about these guys right here, but they do not tie them in with these guys right here. And like I said, these guys right here and these guys right here, they are one of the same. They are in bed with each other. They are the same group of people, and they are the ones that are causing all this chaos and debauchery around the world. All this BS about China invading Taiwan, these guys. Everything in the Ukraine is a war that was started by these guys. Straight up, 100%. I can do a whole video on that stuff. The actual funding of it, everything about that war was 100% these guys. Don't need to say that it is these guys right here in regards to what is happening in a certain country in the Middle East. Not going to say any names or anything like that. Everything, all this bloodshed, World War I, World War II, the Napoleonic Wars, the Spanish-American War. The Spanish-American War was actually a war between these guys and the Jesuits. They don't really get on, the Jesuits and these guys, in any way, shape, or form. And that, just so you know, goes all the way back to when Rome was in charge of England. And if you ever want to see how these guys right here, the Masons, got their hands on the British crown, watch the movie Braveheart with Mel Gibson. A lot of information in there. Yeah. So the actual World War II, Korean War, Vietnam War, the War on Terror. The War on Terror was one of the biggest scams on the face of the earth. 100%. 100% one of the biggest scams on the face of the earth. The actual Mujahideen, the Taliban, were funded by the US. Straight up. Timothy Osmond, Osama bin Laden, he was a CIA asset. These guys, right here. And when the debauchery really started taking off, think about this. Since the early 90s, it's been constant wars, right? Constant wars, okay? The head of the CIA, George Bush Sr., one of these guys. George Bush Jr. is most probably one of these guys. We had a little bit of a break there with Bill Clinton. Got a feeling Clinton's most probably a Jesuit, to be honest. Nah, he wouldn't be. Trump, 100% one of these guys. And Obama, I would pretty much put Obama in the category of being one of these guys here also. I could be wrong. But his mother's father and grandfather both work for the Central Intelligence Agency. And if you're working for the Central Intelligence Agency, it was these guys right here that formed the Central Intelligence Agency, in bed with these guys right here. So all the debauchery, all the BS, all the ridiculous stuff that goes on around this world, everything, these guys, they are your Satanistic death cult. And in all honesty, Humanity needs them right now like a fish needs a bicycle. And that's the God's honest truth. So, if you got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. And until the next video, make it great, guys. Alrighty? Take it easy. Cheers.